Hello, and welcome back to The Strick. My name is Bree. I'm so happy you're here. To weigh in, or if you have any follow-up questions, visit us on Instagram at Istrico, Istrico, and find our post for this episode. All right, welcome you two. Let's start, Jake, with a little bit on your background of expertise.
Sure. My name is Jake Zatzkin. I am a video producer. I have a background in digital strategy. I started my career in this space doing marketing segmentation, moved along to work with Anthony on K Street and then .orgs, and now I do a lot of video production for government agencies. I'm the one who runs the video team that does like client production for primarily government agencies. My team makes videos and animations for the State Department, Department of Defense, Department of Interior, Department of Transportation, CDC, different kinds of animations, public facing, internal, all sorts of fun stuff.
So it's about getting information out there.
It's about getting information out there. Sometimes it's about clarifying information. So our team will do anything from, making a marketing video to promote the existence of a program or the importance or the success of something globally or domestically, straight up to, an agency coming to us and saying, hey, we're having a really hard time getting people to adapt to using this new financial management software. They're making one-pagers to try to teach people about stuff. And essentially I come in and help them understand that video is just sticky. So, talking to somebody or the written word is the least sticky. Conversations, the next level in terms of people walking away and remembering what you talked about. Pictures, infographics, things like that are the next level. And then video is the most sticky thing in the marketing world. People have a tendency to be able to absorb it, remember it, revisit it comfortably.
In a perfect world.
In a perfect world.
Since when we've been working together, almost 15 years now. Let's start with some fun things. What has come and gone and you are appreciative of the fact that that trend did not stick?
Short form social media content, hyper short form video content like Vine. Super fun to consume, but there was no real ability to sell it. There just wasn't a space to do it professionally unless you were doing it for yourself. Like absolutely to be an influencer, 100%. But to do it professionally, there's no real room for it.
And yeah, it does seem like, because TikTok started short form and then it's slowly gotten longer and longer, where now even influencers are talking for 3 or 4 minutes.
I do think the 10-minute thing is a bit much. Mm-hmm. They shouldn't be trying to step into the YouTube space because YouTube has just become like an insurmountable behemoth. And so I think 3 minutes was their sweet spot.
But yeah, so are you on TikTok? Do you kind of tend to wait to see where these new social medias go?
I always, anytime a new platform comes up, I make it my business to understand it just because I'm a consultant. So I get asked questions and the landscape changes. And so I always want to know, because a big part is creating the content, and I treat video creation, I treat that process very similarly to user experience design process. So and Anthony, we've been this guy on both sides of it, right? When you're a creative agency, client comes in and they tell you what you want. They don't have the expertise. You execute it. In my world, a client comes in, tells me what they need the end result to be. And then I look at the landscape, I look at what's available to me, and I make recommendations about what's going to accomplish that. And sometimes it's not what I would do, and I push them elsewhere. For what they need to do. But we talk about platform, and then depending on the platform and the audience, we, alter what the content should be. Should be a video, should be an animation, should it be anime style, silly, fun, what kind of tone should it have?
You brought up something which I think we do all the time. It's client comes to us with an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we need to make a documentary. Okay, let's talk about why, and let's talk about your budget. Like, how often do you find folks are just impressed by something shiny?
So I realized from the creation side that, the government, because there's so much red tape and all these other pieces, they tend to lag behind, right? Like they're well aware of the fact that from a trend standpoint, they sort of trail everybody else. And, and our creative standards that we have are the biggest thing that holds us back. Because if we like it, then they're going to like it, unless it's just full on, unless they have a vision and we're just not matching it. And then we make adjustments.
To that point too, I think the the curse of any agency, whether it's private or public, any large agency, we run into the approval process being so many layers.
Yes.
Something can be approved in March of 24 and won't wrap until June of 25. And not only has the messaging shifted, but the approach and platform has shifted. And that's something that we struggle with. And sometimes it's not even like you've delivered multiple versions. It's just this storyboard needs to go through so many rounds. So to that point, how do you create content that's timeless, not just from like a time span, but being platform neutral?
So platform neutral is a little tricky, right? Because now we started out in a world where we would tease people for shooting vertical video.
Yeah.
And then it sort of flipped, and even YouTube has gotten into both games. It's always a little tough. I do think that there's a way to shoot things and design things so that it can be platform agnostic, right? Like you can be mindful of your 9:16 frame. But yeah, in terms of like the overall content itself and time agnostic and platform agnostic, I've actually gotten a lot better at script writing doing this job, because since I am never the content expert, I actually rely on content experts to generate the first script round. And then I go in and help them turn it into a flowing narrative and a story. And so doing that from the outside and coming in and taking sort of the correction line to it has really improved my storytelling significantly, which I think makes things very timeless. And we try to leave holes for the things that we know might change. When we're talking about numbers, when we're talking about years, we try to create things in a way that those are easily changed or swapped out and potentially not called out in any narrations or voiceovers.
Yeah, and I think, many tools in our trade, right, that we can use to do that. Animation, right? Text on screen is an easier edit than re-recording someone on camera, delivering the fact that now we serve 12.3 million, not 12.1. And I think we always try to speak in general terms. But another thing that we run into often, and I see this more and more now post-pandemic, is in a good way, I think that a lot of clients have accepted the fact that the life cycle of a video doesn't need to be eternity.
No.
Back in the day when people were investing in a film shoot or even a video shoot,
They had to get their money's worth.
this needs to last us for 5 years. And I think now the reality is in their mind, we can jump on Zoom next week and update it. So I think that's been good. How do you spin that in a positive way to let a client know that although we're making evergreen content, it should evolve?
Well, first of all, one of the nice things, you mentioned the pandemic, one of the things that came out of the pandemic in a way that was beneficial in video production is the expectation of fidelity took a nosedive, especially when it took to talking heads. Pre-pandemic, if you wanted to shoot an executive, you had to be on site with the full crew, lighting kit, HD cameras, multiple angles. And we got to a point there where you can have a Super Bowl commercial with somebody on Zoom. And I'm doing everything I can to keep that from disappearing because it keeps costs down and it enables reshoots and adjustments on the fly. As we always say, this one is going to evolve. This video, it's going to get redone every year based on what we learned about the audience, what changes in the content, what types of things we choose to put into it. And the platforms it goes on might be adjusted as the years go on. And so first, I think expectations are super important. Get them on board with the idea that, this particular video that says who they are, this one needs to be a living document.
I think the importance of having things evolve is good. Like we often talk with clients and do some work on rebranding, and it's less of a new identity, but it's always a refresh. It's that evolution. What's something that's a technology out there that's readily available that you wish clients would take more advantage of?
I wish people would take advantage of external microphones. Even just going out there and getting a $20 microphone, because one of the things we run into all the time, right, is I do a lot of the voiceovers around, especially when doing videos for government, just because I grew up in Connecticut and I just have a very normal, boring accent. What do you call it? A broadcast accent. I don't really pronounce anything particularly odd. However, every once in a while, somebody comes in and they would like a different voice. We would love to get a female voice. We would love to get a regional voice, some diversity, which I'm totally on board with. And I agree, it can't always be me. However, there's never budget for bringing in a professional. And I always sort of tell them, if you can get your hands on a $20, half decent external microphone and just record this, that's the missing piece for a lot of people, right? Everybody's just used to talking into their open ear microphone.
And to that point, that little investment in technology, one of the things during the pandemic that we did is we packaged up ring lights and mics. And what a significant difference, you know? So I think the tools out there have really come a long way, particularly in the past few years, but out of necessity, that you can really capture broadcast compatible quality. In effect, inexpensive technologies out there that we can simply put in people's hands that are easy enough to get a much better quality product out of the average person.
Absolutely. And I actually just had that exact conversation with my wife, who was running a webinar a few weeks ago, and I was just helping out to edit it down for her, pull out some ums, clean it up, fix the presence of PowerPoints and things like that. And she asked me what I thought overall, because it was a Zoom piece. The two big pieces of feedback that I had was the content's fantastic. And I think what you need to do is you need to send everybody a ring light and a microphone, because you're using the AI Zoom background minus, which I think works, but it needs more light. And then the other thing that I think I started doing in the pandemic and continued is developing these little one-sheeters about framing yourself, how to be on camera.
And it's funny, the most important thing, the most creative thing I did during the pandemic was we laid out one pagers with framing. Here I am sitting in front of a window. Here I am sitting behind a window. Like, to your point, just those little details.
And I only thought to do it because my parents' 50th wedding anniversary was during the pandemic. I think I sent you the video that I made, and I sent around to a bunch of baby boomers, can you send me some video? And my wife and I were sitting there going, we cannot ask them for video without showing them little mock-up of exactly what we need them to do. And then I realized, that's helpful for everybody. And if you already know it, God bless, enjoy the giggle at the one-sheeter.
Even like 6-7 months into the pandemic, we were still getting videos from people that were filmed vertically, that were filmed, with a giant window behind them. It's really been an interesting speed test the past 2 years of people just becoming that much more savvy. And that's what I'm interested in, the balance between, everyone says authenticity is key, you need to be authentic, but the first thing you do if you want to be taken seriously, even as an influencer, is buy a better mic, get that lighting set up. Like, there is this balance. In order to be taken sincerely, still know that there's a base level of production.
In order for your content to be able to speak, you have to match the moment in terms of how everything looks, so that is not a distraction.
Exactly right.
You're not going to become an influencer because you get the ring lights and you're framing yourself nicely. However, that will put you into the game. And then if the content is interesting and you get lucky talking about something that is trending, or, somebody stitches you, then you sort of take the ride.
And another thing, too, that's worth noting, I think, is the least common denominator. If 9 out of 10 people on the call have a ring light and a good connection, they are going to make that one person who doesn't look even worse. But I think that's one thing that makes the remote content so tough, is you can't control all the variables. And one that looks really good will make those that don't look so good even worse.
Much, much worse. Because I feel like any creative production is a lot about those visceral moments that people don't even notice they're having, right? People don't even notice that, you're toying with their emotions by having cuts happen on the beats of music. It completely changes things. I mean, we see it in a comical sense, right? If there's a video going around the internet of a famous movie scene and they throw a different audio behind it, the difference that it makes. Yeah.
When the first goal and the client's goal is educate, are you pushing for emotion or humor or color? Is it something that doesn't even matter for a lot of your videos? Like, how do you find that balance?
I had a conversation recently. I was talking with a state government team, and they're implementing a 311 line, and they want to educate people about it. So 311, for people don't know, it's a non-emergency line. And so my first thought was, this is non-emergency, which means you actually have some bandwidth to have some personality. I mean, obviously there are some serious things, right? Animal in the street, stuff like that. But this is, street lights out. We're not going yakety sax with the music, but to have some more color, some color blocking to hit that sort of, I would say, the fidelity that I call clean corporate. So color blocking, 2D, but clever movements and personality. There might be emojis in there. You might show still images with text bubble conversations popping up with sound effects. And it elicits a lot of personality. And if that is appropriate, that is so much stickier for the audience. I'll never push too hard because at the end of the day, my job is at this point, is to fulfill what they want or to help them figure out what it is that they want. When I'm hiring and talking to young designers and animators, I usually have that conversation where I say, listen, we come in there, we make recommendations, we show them storyboards, we put as much personality and fun into it as is appropriate. At the end of the day, the final word, you do it. And it just becomes a matter of, all right, well, this has become something that the client loves, but I'm not putting it in my demo reel. And that's fine. Because at the end of the day, their satisfaction is what's really important. Sometimes we'll save versions prior to final adjustments, and I would make things, and then someone would come in and as to me as like a young creative and just ruin it with their final ask, and it's fine. I'm saving the previous version. This is the one I'm sharing with everybody.
Oh yeah, the director's cut is a thing.
But I'm Snyder, but it's 3 minutes.
We used to have a creative director that I worked with, and he always used to say, "There's the work that we do for clients, and then there's the award-winning work." And the reality is, we have the blessing and the benefit of having clients that have been with us for 14 years now, and I think each year we push our clients a little bit more, which is great because the technology advances, the skill advances. But I have seen, and I'm sure you have, working at big agencies where they're hesitant to propose something so different, because then you get that client that's going to come back and say, well, why didn't we do that last year? Because this is so much better than what we did last year, And I think having the confidence in saying things evolve, things change. We've got this new idea. You've got to trust us on this. And to your point, like, people come to us not to hit buttons, but for counsel. When I started hiring folks, of course, I hired folks that were better than I was, which wasn't a difficult thing to do. But each time you bring in a new talent, you get a fresh set of eyes on a way to do things that you've already done a certain way for a long time. You want to talk a little bit about AI since you opened up Pandora's box?
Yeah, sure. And before I talk about AI, I will point out, since we were talking about how long ago it was that we worked together on K Street, I'll let Bree know that 25% of Anthony's office was taken up by a CD burner.
Yeah, that's right. It was DVD as well. It was duplication.
DVD, CD burner, and printer.
Yeah.
If you just want to have some idea.
Okay, then.
From a content standpoint, I think AI is very cool. I know there have been issues with static imagery in AI because it aggregates from the internet, and including copywritten work and all those sorts of pieces. For me and my creative work, the single biggest thing that AI has done for me is saving time with graphic design. And I don't mean rendering things, I mean masking things. So one of the, I do a lot of graphic design, or have over the years. Now I do more video than graphic design. One of the biggest skills that you used to be able to develop in something like Photoshop is masking out things. And the fact that now it is a one-click process is epic. I mean, what AI is really great for is what it's been around doing forever, right? What IBM Watson does with it is taking massive amounts of content information, boiling it down, aggregating it. I think it's going to help in the research phase of the creative process. With AI, you can get what the demographic is, give it the inputs of the last round of the Pew research on social media, and let it tell you what platforms to put things on. I think that's really where it plays. I don't think generating content from scratch, I think using it as a tool is really what we should be moving forward into, and where it's the most useful.
You're still the maestro, right? Like, if you put a photo into AI, in my shot, it's probably going to center me with that frame behind me, and it's going to remove that dog. Whereas you and I would see it and say, well, the bigger issue is that the door is open, right? Like, right. Acknowledging and composing and framing. I think it's got a long way to go before it's going to replace any of us. And I hope that at least the three of us on this podcast will be out of the game before our positions are eliminated, whether we choose to or not.
Yes.
That's why I get a kick out of, like, we chat with a lot of production folks and so many people. I go back to, like, when the iPhone started doing 4K, there was the vocal group that said, oh man, that's going to put us out of work. And I was like, if you're threatened by somebody with an iPhone, you're not selling your right skills.
The medium should not matter.
Absolutely.
And I've talked people through this a ton of times. And the reference that I always, and in fact, if you're a good storyteller and you have good content and a good story to tell, the entire purpose of something and the success of something like South Park and pretty much everything that Trey and Matt have done, the Team America World Police was a similar thing where they ramp down the fidelity of what they're doing, which actually focuses your attention into the content. Now, it wouldn't have worked if the writing wasn't funny and the scenarios weren't funny. That's a legitimate path forward. Now, you can't do it if sometimes you're in a position where the content that you have available to you or the story just isn't particularly compelling, and you have to meet it halfway with a little bit of flair and flamboyance in the actual medium that you're working in. The music needs to be a little more compelling. The editing needs to be a little more on point. But if the content's amazing, I actually think that dialing down the fidelity is more beneficial.
I want to just pivot a little and ask you, well, before we close out here, what are the metrics of a successful video?
Ooh. For me, it's really about creating the right thing at the right time and putting it in the right place. Never been one of those like, oh, well, if we don't get 10,000 views on something, that it's not successful. It's all about adoption of something, some ideology, some method of doing something. And when there is budget and time, I want to have those conversations with stakeholders and find out what they actually want, what they actually need. And if we've created the video that satisfies the need, then it's successful.
Mm-hmm. I always say the number one thing that we do for clients is manage expectations. Yes,
Absolutely.
we create engaging and entertaining content, but if they come to us thinking they're going to get Pixar and we deliver South Park, we have failed them. Yet if we adjust that expectation at the start and let them know, based on your time, your budget, and your audience, this is what we think we can do, then that's a win right there.
I mean, management consulting is all about expectations and honesty. It's the thing that appealed to me. I went over there from NAB to PwC, and so I was doing in-house marketing. My first day there, I was sitting down and I was listening to someone walk up to a more senior person than myself and say, hey, I've got this project. I need somebody to do this on it. And they listed off like 10 things that they needed, like skills that the person needed to do. I heard this guy essentially say, absolutely, I am a full-on expert, totally comfortable. And he listed off 7 of the 10 things and said, those 3, I'm not your guy. I have no idea. And he said, great, we'll find somebody else for those 3. And I was like, you can do that? Because at the end of the day, they don't want an ounce of insecurity in those rooms.
Oh, yeah.
They want everybody in there super honest, upfront about what it is that they're an expert in, what they can bring to the table, because then it creates this amazing conversation where we can control expectations. Like, no, here's what it is. Now, as I'm trying to sell you on this work, I'm going to explain to you why I think what we can do is what you need. Why I think you don't need Pixar. Don't spend the money on Pixar. What you need is South Park.
Right. Yeah, that confidence in your skills, I think also serves dual purpose in avoiding trends and avoiding those short term, being confident in the vision because you have it. You're drawing from experience and not just desperately trying to keep up.
Absolutely. It's been 10 years since I've had to misrepresent anything, which is so nice.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of my favorite things to do with the client is the start of the call. Okay, we're making this video for this, but where else can you use this? Like I always say, the best way to maximize our value is to keep us busy when we're on set. If it's a nonprofit we're working with and we're filming an About Us piece, and that next year is your 20th anniversary, we might as well capture the CEO or the founder talking about why they started this,
Yeah, why not?
3 months away from the end of the year, let's do an annual giving piece. And to me, that's not an upsell. That's really maximizing our efficiency and then the value that clients have with us.
Sure, absolutely.
I assume that and our personalities and great work is why they keep coming back.
They want that fast talking Staten Island boy on set. I'm sure. I would actually be interested to know how your organization has progressed without you being the guy there all the time, because I know that I was there for the inception, right? For clients saying like, can I just work with you?
Yep.
And and I wonder, because that was what got you off the ground, was people loved, everybody loves that New Yorker attention.
Yeah. Well, that's still there. It was very easy for me from early on to bring on people that were better shooters, better editors, better animators. So to know that my level of attention to the client would be backed up by people like Nora and everybody else, on the team, or animators or designers, that's clients who are like, oh, great. We don't just have to know that it's going to be a seamless experience and everything will be there. It'll be seamless, and the work is getting better and better.
Have you been training people on schmoozing or bringing in
That's my
people
job.
specifically for that skill set, or that's just what you do?
He's still chief schmoozer.
That's right. That's the only thing I do here is
The CSO.
clients feel comfortable and let them know that it will be okay.
Well, this conversation has just flown by. Thank you so much for jumping on and sharing all this insight with us.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thank you, Jake. Pleasure to catch up.
Always.
And thank you all for tuning in. We'd love to hear from you. We can be reached on Instagram and Facebook. And if you have any questions for Jake or past guests or ideas for future topics, please do reach out. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks.